Thank you for tuning in. This production is brought to you by the Dead Roots.
Hello, universe. Welcome back to the show. Here we have Aubri Marie, aka Honey. I'm super excited to invite you on. Do you mind if I ask how old you are?
Of course. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I am 25, aka 25 years young.
I love that. All right, so what do you do for work?
Well, I'm kind of a jack of all trades, but I own my own business in modeling as well as like network marketing, branding, and advertising through social media. So I kind of like do the whole content creation, influencer, as well as like events and like hosting. And then I dance sometimes and I work in the nightlife. So yeah, I kind of just use all of my talents that I can and use that to own my own time.
That's awesome. Definitely, like, time is,
Oh, girl.
can't ever get that back.
I know, right?
Time better be well spent.
Absolutely.
All right. What religion did you grow up in?
It's kind of funny. So, like, my parents grew up in, like, separate religion, but they didn't put any religion onto me. And so I kind of had to seek out my own religion. And I kind of sought out more, like, non-denominational Christianity, but my mom grew up as a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh my goodness.
And
That's quite
yeah,
different departments of religion for sure.
Absolutely. She did not want to bring that faith into our household or anything. So she didn't really like bring any faith into our household. Like we had crosses around and there was always like a higher power, but there was never like, this is what our house is and this is what we're going to follow.
Mm-hmm.
So I started kind of getting more into religion myself when I was like, I want to say like 7, 8. When I started going into like youth group, like more like youth groups with my friends, and it was kind of like more of like a hangout thing. But, we did worship and all that, which I really loved because I love the, like spiritual kind of side of like singing and dancing and stuff like that. But that was kind of my main influence. I did have an aunt who was still Jehovah's Witness, and I hung out with her a few times. And she's the one who told me like Santa wasn't real and like all those types of things, which my mom was not happy about. But other than that, a little bit of Baptist, and that's about it. I haven't really, haven't been to church in a while, but I used to go when I was young, like kind of more youth group than Sunday service.
Do you follow any religion now or like path of spirituality or anything?
I do. I follow more like spirituality. I study Buddhism, Hinduism, some pagan, shamanism, like Native American type studies since I'm Cherokee. And then I also I believe that all religions coincide with something that is a true like foundation. So I feel like everybody's always talking about the same story, a different culture.
I love that. I completely agree with you.
Right.
Like I just recently was or fairly recently, I guess, was getting into the Quran a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because I was just curious. I love like dabbling in different religion, kind of just knowing the history, like where the stories come from, all that, or the like lore, for lack of a better word, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like the morals that come along with that. And it was crazy to me, like how similar it was to the Bible. Like even the names and everything like that. I was shocked. It's just like through and through. We're looking at the same picture, but just from different lenses, I feel like.
Absolutely. It's actually crazy you say that because I was over one time at like a family friend's house and they studied, I forgot what the religion was called, but they showed me the book. And I guess there's only a few books like in the whole world. And I guess he had one. This is all supposedly, but I looked at it. The pages were so old. Like you could tell it was an old book. But then he had another book and it was like the Bible as well, but it was all Black people. Like,
that's awesome.
yeah, it was all like the story of Moses.
Mhm.
And it was just depicted completely different. Like, it looked like the Bible as well, but it was called something different, and it was depicted by all like Africans. And I think it had
That's
something to do with
beautiful.
Egyptian culture. So I thought that was really cool too. I was like, let me find out. But it was kind of like a shh thing. So I was like, okay, I guess we're being quiet about this, just like everything else.
Oh my gosh. It's definitely crazy how like over time like the game of telephone has completely warped the image of like Jesus and Moses into being like this whitewashed facade rather
Absolutely.
than the root entity that he represents, and especially because
Absolutely.
of the culture that we're standing in now with all the BLM and all this activism coming out. It's like we should be looking at that. And
Yeah.
I feel like our I'm losing my train of thought here a little bit, but like I feel like we're definitely getting a little bit distracted by like the scenery on the route to ending racism, you know? It's like
Yes. I love
it's
that.
frustrating to watch.
It's interesting because I feel that a lot of, as you know, I'm sure too, like the stigma is like Christians would be the ones to judge you more than the person who's the tattoo artist or
Mhm.
who's, you know, like a musician or like something like that. It's always like there's this stigma I feel behind religion that it has to be a certain, people have to be a certain way, and it has to be a certain way. But the main thing is that people forget that religion is based upon love and like loving thy neighbor.
Yeah.
And really in every religion, except, you know, we get into patriarchy and all that type of stuff, but
Mhm.
like, and then equality. But the basis of it is, you know, treat others how like you want to be treated.
Yeah,
And
the
God is
golden
always
rule.
watching.
Yeah, right.
But for real. But yeah, I would
Yeah.
say that the main thing I study is like, it would definitely be like Hinduism. And
Very
it would
nice.
definitely be studying like the gods and goddesses in
Mhm.
Hinduism, which I'm still learning so much. I have a chakra workbook that I read, and I actually have to like work through it, which I love. But yeah, I like to dabble in like crystal healing and meditation and stillness practices and just like visualization practices, more for like, I feel like my biggest religion now is like manifesting the life that I want and creating
Mhm.
like a heaven on earth is my religion.
I love that. So do you incorporate like any psychedelics into that practice?
I do actually, and I've been getting into it slowly, but shrooms I feel are like the best thing that, I won't say the best thing has ever happened to me, but in regards to like meditation. And I will say, like, I had to honestly go through a few shroom trips before I was able to relax and
Mm.
like actually focus on like my third eye or focus on my breathing. But I like to microdose, which is like
Yeah.
very, very, very small amounts. And I like to put them in a tea, steep it with like lemon and honey or like some turmeric or something like that, and just kind of have a very like calm going into my trip, to where it kind of takes me literally like on a journey. And with that journey, I tried to set intentions before my trip. Like, okay, this is like what I want to reflect on, like in my life or like this situation. And like, this is what I kind of like just want to release. And so that's kind of why I started shroom tripping. But anything else, other psychedelics, I will say I haven't gotten to the point of pure consciousness and awareness while taking it and like focusing, other than shrooms so far.
So you mentioned like self-reflection, and I feel like that's something that's almost going out of fashion, like in some ways.
Girl, right.
So
I'm waiting for
how
it
do
to
you
come back
incorporate
in
it?
season.
Mixing up my words here.
Oh no, you're fine.
How do you like incorporate that into your day-to-day lifestyle and everything? Because that's something that I feel like is a practice that does take that day-to-day focus. But without the
Absolutely.
skill of self-reflection, sometimes you can't have that focus to practice it. So it's kind of this like catch
Yeah, it's
22
like
kind of thing.
absolutely. I find in like becoming more self-aware is making a routine and like being consistent And for a while, like when I came back to Colorado, because I lived in Seattle for a little bit, I was like doing shadow work, like horse training and like all that kind of thing. And I was really, really like not centered because I was living with like two ex-heroin addicts and then two people who were like hard working, but who were never there, super stressed. And then just like a little mix of like everything in between. And so when I came back to Colorado, I was super unfocused and I didn't have a routine. Like I didn't have like a set thing that I did every day. Like I would get up and go to work and then my day would just be kind of like up in the air from there. And I would just be like kind of just going through the motions of life. And I realized, and it was actually, it's funny because my ex and we had been together for a while, like for almost 4 or 5 years at the time. And he was like, I see like you're like, I see it. Like, what's going on, you know? And it took that one little thing, like for him to kind of check me and me be like, you know what, I have, but he couldn't do anything more than check me. Like he couldn't help me get a routine. He couldn't, like give me that kind of motivation. I had to do it like on my own. And so I started to read. I first started to read like kind of like self-help books, something small that wasn't like overwhelming.
Yeah.
And like I think I started out with The Secret.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah, and it wasn't too bad of a read. It's pretty fairly short. And then I started out with what's it called? The Five Law and
I know
you know what
exactly.
I'm talking about, right? It's by
The Five Agreements?
The Five Agreements. Yes. I started out with The Secret and then The Five Agreements. And I then realized, I really needed to take control of my destiny and of my life. And that's when I got a planner again and I took it back like old school. I was like, I'm in school, the school of life.
Yeah.
So let me get a planner and let me get a journal and let me get my shit together because I was like, I feel like that's the only way I was going to be able to figure it out is like literally write it down, see it, even if I didn't have anything to do. Because when I first started my planner, I was like, I literally don't have anything to do in my day. Like I work and I go home and I work out and I can cook. And I was like, all right, well, you just have to fill up your day. And that's what helped me start to become more self-aware is like just those consistent practices and making it a habit to open my planner every day, to pick up a book and read 15 minutes a day to where it didn't seem so overwhelming. Like of all the stuff that I had to do that I couldn't do it anymore, I would just started stacking on habits. Like, okay, I can read now. I can get in my planner. Now I can work out. Now I can cook. Now I can clean. Now I can go to work. Like now I can do it all. And now I feel better because I'm present. So that's what helped me most was being consistent.
That's beautiful. Like
Thanks, baby girl.
definitely consistency is oh my gosh.
It's a lost
it's like
art
an
too.
anchor. Yeah, it is. Oh my gosh, so lost. So lost.
Oh my gosh.
It's definitely like fun to like excite yourself with those new habits that you're incorporating too, because it's like refreshing. Like any little thing that you just step into, it's like, oh, well, we can try this. Oh, well, we can try this.
Right.
Okay, that doesn't fit with me, or like that's not in my journey today. Like that kind of thing. Like
sure.
whatever sits right. Like you feel it for sure.
You do, and no one can help you. Like it's crazy. Because, like, you can have support around you and motivation around you, but no one can literally make you do, like, what you need to do for you. And so it was like, okay, well, I guess I got to do it. Like, but at the same time, it's hard to get out of those. And especially, like, I would say, like, when I was in college, I lost, like, my full touch with religion. Like, I was super, like, praying every day because I went from, like, going to like the youth groups and everything to like church camps and like a purity retreat, lost my virginity like 2 years later. Like did great, but like to like, oh my gosh, like is God even real? Like what the fuck? Like would he let this happen? And so I had a complete falling out with religion in college, and that's where I feel like I had found spirituality like 100% because I was like, I have to let go of this ideology that there can only be one way. And I was like, there's so many other ways. And I think the biggest issue I had with religion was the coming to terms with death. And that for me was just like, I don't know, there was no, like, I don't know, solace, I guess, in it. So I was like, how could, like, because some people I met throughout, my journey in college, they were like, oh, well, you just die. That's it. I'm like, damn, you feel that way? Like, that's it? They're like, yeah, fuck it. Like, we have this life and that's it. Then we're gone. And I'm just like, I mean, yeah, but wouldn't you like to think like it's like your energy goes somewhere or something? And they're like, hmm. So I was like, there's so much duality. Like, I didn't really. So I was like, how is it real?
So what do you think? Like, where do you think we go when we die?
I don't know. I feel like I feel energy cannot be created nor destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's science. I feel like we have to go somewhere. And I feel like our energy basically is transferred / ascended into whatever consciousness that we're at the time. And whether that's like I don't know if it's based, I mean, I'm sure it's based upon like everything that's happened in your life and how you feel. But some people, you have two different sides. Like you have people who die in tragic car accidents and they don't know. Then you have serial killers who are on death row who are smiling while they're dying. So it's like, if you're in that same mindset, like if you're in a terrified mindset versus a good mindset, where does your soul go if your consciousness is geared towards that way of thinking at that moment? So maybe it is a collaboration of everything that you've done in your life. But at the same time, who's to know? I would like to think that we have certain things that we have to learn in this life. And if we don't learn them, I think we're almost reincarnated, honestly, back into another human life to learn it again. But I also feel like we pick our lives and that we subconsciously know what we're getting ourselves into, but we just have to go through it and learn that human experience. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I feel like we don't just disappear. I feel that our human bodies are bounded to the earth, but I feel like our souls either ascend or are like lost maybe on this plane.
That's beautiful. I like that. So where do you think like consciousness comes from to take it like a step further?
Well, let me take a hit for that. Well, I believe that obviously the consciousness has to come from a higher power. What that higher power is, like to say it's just one person up in the sky, I feel like is kind of vague. But at the same time, like, I feel like it has to be something. Maybe we're not even from this planet. I don't know. There's always so many theories. I don't really know what to believe, but I know that there's so many theories. Like maybe this is a prison planet. Maybe we are just shot down here from a higher power to learn what we need to learn or to be his subjects, or her. Like, we don't know. I feel like I believe the biggest thing is this consciousness gives you the free will to do whatever. And whatever you do with that is on you, I don't think on that consciousness.
That's a unique perspective, for sure. So you're saying that there's like definitely a solid differentiation between your soul's actions and your human actions.
I think so, yeah. I think that being here in a, earthly body makes you constricted to, human ways and, greed and selfishness, but also love and light. You can get both. That's why there's heaven and hell. That's why I find it so interesting, because people talk about the devil, they talk about God, but God created the devil.
Yeah.
maybe this could hit some nerves over here, but he did. And you can't have light without dark. You can't have dark without light. And that's why then I go into the yin and yang. Like everything is so, I feel everything has an answer, but no answer at all. And like, I feel when God or the higher power, the utmost high, gave you that soul consciousness to be put into a human consciousness, I feel part of it, your soul had to either find or is put in these certain, human bodies to elevate in a soul, like your soul consciousness. But who's to say? But yeah.
If you'd like to participate in this week's interactive Instagram question, do you experience psychedelics? And if so, how do you experience them? Comment your answer on our Instagram at The Dead Roots.
I really like your perspectives on this a lot. Like, I feel like you definitely like to break open those barriers of the conversation.
I've
that's
never
like so
talked
fun
about this before, so it's kind of like, what?
Like, do you think about this a lot, like for yourself though?
Yeah, I do. Like when I'm on my trips by myself, I'm like, wow. I'm like,
so shit is different. Like,
no, seriously. And then, oh my gosh, we were talking about the shroom trip. Like I went on a DMT trip once upon a night. And I didn't go over the edge. And if anybody's ever done DMT, you know that there's like a 3-hit kind of process. Sometimes you can hit it on a pen, but it won't be the same. But it's a 3-hit process. You should always get it from somebody you trust, and always somebody who, my person, he made it, and he was very he was very much a guide. And I would like give him almost like the title of a shaman in a sense, because of the way he took you through it and explained. So like I felt safe. But you are supposed to go over the edge. I did not do that. I didn't feel 100% comfortable. But that type of feeling, DMT is, I don't even think I can say it, dimethyltryptamine or something like that. But that's like the actual compound. And it's what's released in your brain, like when you die, when you dream, and it's released in everything, in plants and animals. So when it's in this concentrated form and you take a huge, dosage of it, you basically go into this dream state that you're really only in for about a minute at the most, but it feels like you're in it for years sometimes, or like hours or days, or some people have said their trips have lasted for a long time. But for me, when I took the first hit, it's not like a outer experience when you feel shrooms where you're like, okay, like I feel kind of buzzy, like things are kind of moving, like the leaves are waving. It's more like you go in. And that's what made me really realize that this is an inner journey and not an outward journey. Like this stimulus that we see outside of us is like just like a TV screen, literally a TV screen. So when you like go in, and I had that inner experience, it was like, you can't really explain it, and it's different for everybody. But what I saw like a resemblance of like Mother Gaia, or like I would say Nefertiti. I would say more so like Mother Gaia, like Mother Nature. And it kind of reminded me of what's that movie Moana, the island, what's her name, Ka?
I never saw it, but I love this song. I saw
it's this she's basically like, she is like Mother Nature of the island, and she like lives on the island, but the whole mountain is her, like, and it looks like she's laying down. And it's funny because there's actually a few mountains like that around the world where it looks like from an aerial view like a woman laying down like in a fetal position, but it looked like her. And it was just like, all I saw was just green and like purple and pink flowers, like kind of like lilac looking flowers, like rolling in on each other. And it was just like so beautiful, but it was so overwhelming. And when I had to take the second hit, I was like, no. I was like, oh my God. I held my friend. They're like, you're okay. And all I could hear is like their voices. They sounded like they were like like rooms away. Like they were like, "You're okay," and I was like, "Get me out of here." Well, I didn't freak out, but I was just like, it was just so overwhelming because it's really like a mini death that you go through. And it feels like, from what it was explained to me also, that you do, when you take that third hit, you do kind of have to release and like succumb to that feeling of like dying. And it feels like you're like dying. And that's, I don't know, it's a lot like to think about. But when I experienced it, the taste of dying, I guess, or a glimpse of it, it was peaceful. But like, I was like, let me wait till I'm 25 and my brain's fully developed. So,
Do you mind if I ask how old you were when you first tried it, or had this experience?
I was 23.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 23. So I was like, let me wait a couple more years and I'll try it again if it comes to you. Because it always like stuff like that, it's really weird. It should come to you, and it comes to you very like organically, at least from who I've talked to. And for me, like, it's not just like you go out and find DMT. Like DMT goes out and finds you. Like, it's like, I don't know, it's a weird thing, but definitely let it come to you. But it's an amazing experience, but definitely be around people you trust, somewhere quiet. Because someone started, after my trip, this guy, he was so like excited that I like did DMT. He was like, "How was it? How was it? How was it?" I was like, "Shut the fuck up." Like, I was like, "Please shut the fuck up." I was like, "You're about to drive me crazy."
Set and setting is so important.
It was so important. And he was like, "I'm sorry." I was just like, "Shh." I was like, "Shh." But like, you definitely should be in a place that's quiet, people you trust, with whoever supplied the DMT, with someone you trust, somebody you know is amazing, because it's a very sacred experience, because you're tapping into a chemical that's natural, but also something that like opens up the door to another spiritual realm. And it's very intense, but also when I've talked to my friends who did the full trip, like they come out like different. And I've also watched some documentaries about it too, like scientists and stuff doing it. And I don't know, it's interesting how it gives you a different perspective on life and death. Because it doesn't make death seem so cryptic, I guess.
Especially since our society just kind of numbs it out. It's like, oh, that doesn't happen. Like, it's almost rude to talk about.
Yeah,
in
it's
some
taboo.
ways. Completely taboo. I'm definitely interested to know like how you think like shamans kind of come into that route, like that kind of line of work. Like, have you personally had any out-of-body experiences that you've been able to align with aside from the DMT experience?
No, I haven't had full out-of-body experiences other than like meditating and like possible like astral projection, which I've only done a few times, like consciously, as much conscious as you can be in astral projecting. But yeah, I would say though, with shamanism, like doing stuff like DMT or ayahuasca, like it would be, I think it's smart to have someone like a Reiki master or somebody who is attuned spiritually and has been researching that for a while, or studying that for themselves, and has come to a level of alignment or ascension themselves to be guiding people on those kinds of journeys. But I think it would be beneficial. I feel like it's kind of like a duality also, like having a shaman versus not, because I think having one would be good for a guided, especially if you don't know really what's going on, to be educated. And so you feel trust and you know that other people are around you being in the same, experience. But also you don't know all those people. You don't know that shaman. You don't know what energy they carry. You don't know what energy the people around them carry. So it's like one of those things where you kind of have to go with your intuition. And like, there was another time DMT was offered to me. I think it was like a couple months after that. And I was like, no, I'm good, because it didn't call to me.
Mhm.
So I think though, like there are people who are super qualified and who would be super amazing to guide like meditations or like psychedelic trips, or guided, trips. Um, but I also feel like it would be up to discretion for that person to take it upon themselves on what kind of trip they would like to have. And I think that takes a lot of time in reflection, like we were talking about, to figure out what you need and what you want to get from shrooms or what you want to get from DMT, how you want that to aid in your spiritual development. Because sometimes, like I did shrooms, like I said, a few times. So shrooms used to make me really sick. So it was really hard for me to focus on shrooms at all. And so once I was able to get kind of past that hump, I was able to then focus on like how I wanted a trip to go. Because then all I could think about when I first did it was like, oh, I just want a trip, but then I was like, let me, like, once I got more into my own like healing and my own like spiritual like growth, I started going in and being like, okay, like I'm gonna meditate, I'm gonna, gratitude, I'm gonna do all these things. And then if I do have shrooms, or when I did get shrooms, I was like, I'll do a trip and I want to meditate on this trip. I want to do a bath. Like I want this to be a purposeful trip. And so I can truly like connect with myself, because I think the biggest thing why I trip too, is to release, and to also release my traumas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Mushrooms is like, I feel like so good for
Yeah.
releasing traumas like that.
It is. It's insane because it takes you through so many different, like that's why they call it a trip, because it takes you through so many different journeys, even when you're just sitting in your room.
Yeah, completely.
Literally.
Oh my gosh. You can learn so much so fast.
You do.
Even like get answers to questions you didn't know you had, type things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, I definitely feel like shroom trips have helped me release my traumas, release anxieties, and just like kind of help me cry too. Cause like honestly, like I like to save my tears for my pillow, and it's good to just release sometimes and just release those kind of like feelings. And also, I don't know, it makes me also feel like in doing a shroom trip, like very present, and that like it's okay. Like everything, like all the answers that I don't have about life, about death, about, the freaking business deals I have going on and stuff, like it's okay. I can just be in this moment. And that's okay to just be in this moment. And I feel like shrooms really help you be.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. Like mushrooms is definitely something that helps me get grounded. Like I'm actually diagnosed bipolar and a couple of other things, but I'm unmedicated, and microdosing definitely like helps me find
I love that.
my ground a little bit, because when I'm not doing yoga and I'm not meditating and I'm not doing those anchoring things in my day, the bipolar and other things just kind of take me away.
Yeah.
And it's not safe for me. It's not necessarily safe for the people around me. And I'm not comfortable when I'm feeling that kind of like agitation and anxiety.
Right.
And especially because I like reflect so much that I'm like worried, like, oh, did that come across wrong? Am I being rude? That kind of stuff. And so it's like my mind gets so much more heightened when I'm not anchored in one way or another. And the mushrooms like definitely like just take me from like here and just like gradually bring me back down to earth. Like, okay, so we're here. You see that beautiful tree? Just sit with that for a second.
Sit with
like,
that.
like just take a second, self-reflect, acknowledge the existence of the tree and yourself. Right. And I don't know, I definitely have a solid connection with trees, like Sequoia over here. Speak for the trees. But I feel like it's such a valuable tool that I'm so grateful is actually coming to light. Because people have been like ignoring it for so long, like really almost like chastising it in a way. We're like, oh, that's like taboo, or like that's inappropriate, that's illegal, that's whatever. And it's like, but the medications aren't working. We're ending up with opioid epidemics. We're ending up with mass amounts of children having really hard times in school, or even committing suicide at younger and younger and younger ages. And I'm not saying children should be doing mushrooms by any means, but I'm saying if their parents were able to like step into that and acknowledge like, oh, well, working on my own trauma is going to help my kid.
Yes.
Like, because that's like breaking that generational trauma.
Absolutely.
Is so huge for that kind of societal growth. And we're not we're like right here and the hurdle's like right here. And I feel like we either got to jump it or it's going downhill even faster. Like,
that's how I feel too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's just such a war on opioid addiction, but I don't know. They don't, we already know big pharma and fucking corporations. We sound like hippies over here. But,
Yeah.
but literally though, like, it's way easier to, what's it called? It's way easier to medicate symptoms than to cure the problem. And that's what capitalism and all that kind of thing I feel is about, because if they wanted the problem to be cured, they would cure it.
Yeah.
But they're just putting a blanket over the symptoms while the problem still ensues. And so I also feel very true about that, about the generational trauma and focusing on the source and focusing on your own traumas and own healing to then aid in others and help others, people's traumas and healing. But yeah, I feel that a lot of things need to change, but we can't change them until I don't know. And it's like, we don't have any advocates. There's really no like advocates, like, so going full-fledged, like, the Martin Luther Kings or the JFKs and stuff like that. Like, we need an advocate that's really going to be like, hey, like, this isn't okay, but we don't have an advocate for that kind of mental health, physical health type connection right now. Like, I'm sure if we had Beyonce saying, hey, like, opioid addiction is fucked up, I'm sure people would be talking about opioid addiction.
Yeah.
I think they'd be talking about how fentanyl killed more people last year than COVID-19, suicide, car accidents. What about that pandemic? Like, literally, but it's the war on truth, I feel, right now.
Completely. That's a great way of putting it, for sure. Mm-hmm. I like that you like bring up like the celebrity like advocates, for sure, because I was discussing a little while ago while we were kind of looking into like some activism stuff we wanted to participate in, that I was curious. I'm like, well, why hasn't anyone taken the face of like BLM? Because it's such a massive movement. I'm like, I feel like there's got to be like a couple of headquarter people, for like lack of a better term, that are like, okay, this is what we're doing here. This is the time we're meeting. This is like setting it up, right? But no one wants to step into those shoes. And the perspective I was given was those roles are endangered because they are in danger. Like, if someone steps up to that, they're now placing all of the blame of anything that goes wrong onto themselves, or any disagreements or any mishaps or anything like that. They're basically like pointing the gun straight at themselves. And I thought that was a really interesting perspective to see, because we're not seeing that in so many different areas of activism. We're seeing like organizations coming up instead of individuals. Like, we have Greenpeace and War on Drugs and BLM and like all of these other things that are really fulfilling that role. But I'm not sure if it's not human enough.
Yeah, it's, I'll tell you why. It's because BLM is the face of African Americans, and BLM, it doesn't matter who would have been the face of BLM. BLM has been put on the face for, the provocateuring, the, protests, the rioting. It doesn't even matter who's the face of BLM, because the face of BLM is African American. So that the whole thing about I agree though, these positions are endangered because they're in danger. That's 100% true. No one wants to step up to the plate. Also, no one's really a leader. There's not a leader who's going to be or has enough money right now, unless they're a celebrity. And then they also have their own ties that they have to do. They're like lobbyists for entertainment. So it's just, we can't have an advocate, and like, we have to be the advocate. BLM was a great movement. And I say was a great movement because it it showed people coming together, and it showed African Americans coming together, and it showed everybody coming together of every single culture, like Black Lives Matter. But then it became a propaganda, and it became all media, and that's what the issue became with Black Lives Matter, is it became propaganda, and it became a news story. It became news story after news story, to where they were able to tie in the riots and the provocateering, to where it made the value of Black Lives Matter go down. The value went down when Blue Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, because we're just talking about one thing right now, the Black Lives Matter part. But what people didn't understand is that Black Lives Matter was a cry for everybody to come together.
For sure.
But then it made it to where it was just, it's just African Americans against white people.
And that perspective is so whitewashed.
It is. It is.
But I hate to interrupt you, but we are running out of time, sadly. So hopefully we could definitely come back to
we will.
Do a part 2 sometime. I think it'd be so much fun.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys so much for tuning in. And do you want to share your Instagram handle real fast?
Yes. So I am Aubri Marie, aka Miss Honey Marie. MS Honey Marie, no spaces on Insta. You could also find me on Snapchat, Honey Lovely, 2 Y's on the lovely. Thank you guys for having me.
Awesome. See you guys next time.
If you haven't already, visit our website at thedeadroots.org. And to stay up to date or just to have a laugh, check out our Instagram at The Dead Roots.